Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Ash Anderson, and today I wanted to take a look at space, the business of space, and what SpaceX did yesterday, which is catch a super heavy booster. Talk about how that changes the business of space a little bit, because it changes it in a big way. You see, that super heavy booster that you saw SpaceX just so simply pluck out of the sky on all those videos, and if you haven't seen it, here it is. Yeah, that super heavy booster that SpaceX just so simply plucked out of the sky weighs 275,000 kilograms, which is a number that I can't wrap my head around. It weighs a lot. It is 70 meters tall, which is very tall. Usain Bolt, when he runs 100 meters, it takes him 10 seconds. It would take him 7-8 seconds to run the length of this thing, and he's the fastest guy in the world. This thing is massive. Now, a massive object takes a lot of effort to move, right? So if you have a super heavy booster that you've landed 3-4 miles down the road, because you don't want to land it right where you took it off, but you landed it 4 miles down the road, getting 275,000 kilograms from 3 miles down the road back to where you've got to launch it from takes a lot of money, a lot of resources, and a lot of effort. Not to mention the weight of the legs that are needed on something to land something that weighs 270,000 kilograms. The weight on those legs alone is a massive amount, right? And every additional amount of weight that you have on that booster is more fuel that you need or less capacity you have to actually launch the thing. So SpaceX catching this exactly where it launches from means that they can save on the cost of moving that thing back over there. They can save on the cost of legs, which ultimately brings down the cost of launch considerably. So today, if you wanted to launch something in space today, the cheapest way to get it done is using SpaceX's Falcon Heavy, which is amazing, right? This company continues to put out stuff at such a rapid clip that they're already the cheapest, but they're about to make themselves even more cheaper, and the scale at which it goes even more cheaper is just crazy as well, because today, if you wanted to launch something on the Falcon Heavy, you're looking at a price of somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000 a kilogram. Not much if you have 1 kilogram, right? But nobody's launching 1 kilogram into space. They're probably, especially if they're using the Falcon Heavy, they're probably launching somewhere north of 50,000, 60,000 kilograms. The Falcon Heavy can handle something like 63,000 kilograms into low Earth orbit. 63,000 kilograms. I'm too slow to do the math right now, but at $1,500 a kilogram is very, very expensive. Well, by catching this booster in place and being able to use Starship at some point in the future, SpaceX is going to bring the cost of launch down from $1,500 a kilogram all the way to around about, and this is just estimates, but it definitely seems feasible given what we saw yesterday, $100 a kilogram. So if you're a space company today and you're thinking, wow, it's going to cost me $1.5 million to launch this, there's a chance that at some point in the future you divide that cost by 15x. $100 a kilogram. Wow, instead of $1.5 million to launch this, I'm now paying $100,000. It changes the game, right? And so what I wanted to do for the rest of this video is just look at different ways that we can see today that this changes the game. What do we know of today where this cost will benefit us as humans, or the businesses that are sort of exploring it? So I've got a few things lined up. First off is SpaceX itself, right? You gotta talk about SpaceX itself, and we're gonna start with Starlink. So Starlink is SpaceX's broadband internet. You've probably heard of it, almost certainly heard of it if you're watching a video like this. But SpaceX launches a ton of satellites all around the world, and Starlink is the service that provides broadband internet to your house. You just buy a satellite dish, or you can provide it to planes or ships. But you buy a satellite dish and you have internet, broadband internet, fast, very low ping for satellite internet, right? SpaceX is looking to put out these new versions of the satellites. And if they can put them out a lot cheaper, if they can launch a lot cheaper, it allows them to put these out faster. It allows them to get more capabilities on these satellites for cheaper. And so in the past couple of weeks, right, we've had hurricanes in the United States that have just decimated areas, and SpaceX has been able to say, hey, we can provide to T-Mobile customers, because that's who their current contract and who they're currently working with. But hey, T-Mobile customers, you now get free emergency text messaging if you don't have cell phone internet. Our satellites, our Starlink satellites, will provide you with emergency text messaging for free. So a T-Mobile device, now if you have an iPhone that's on T-Mobile, It'll be able to connect to Starlink without any sort of specialized hardware, which is really cool. Yeah, SpaceX, by making their launches cheaper, can get tech like that up into space. So in the future, instead of it just being, hey, T-Mobile, you can connect and send emergency text messages, it's going to be competing with AST Space Mobile. I haven't really looked into that too deeply. It will be a future video, Starlink versus AST, but it allows them to compete with the likes of AST Space Mobile and say, well, now Starlink is available and it can provide satellite internet to cell phone devices anywhere in the world. It can provide satellite calling to cell phone devices, your iPhone, your Android, anywhere in the world. It used to be, you needed a satellite phone. Those days appear to be, on the edge, and even faster now that we're getting cheap launch in a few years' time, or much cheaper launch in a few years' time. And so here's just another article, saying that Starlink, the FCC did allow Starlink to work on cell phones in areas hit by hurricane. This is, it's kind of a precursor to what's to come, right? If SpaceX demonstrates that they're able to help out in these ways, there's definitely future potential there for SpaceX to say, can we just turn this on across the country? We'll see. Next thing I wanted to talk about is imaging. Got to accept those cookies. But next thing I wanted to talk about is imaging. We have companies like Planet that use these very small satellites, and Black Sky that also use small imaging satellites. So these are imaging companies. They basically take pictures of the Earth tens, if not hundreds of times per day. Very cool tech. But what we're going to start to see is companies, maybe it is Planet and maybe it is Black Sky, but we're going to start to see companies like Black Sky. You see it says real-time space-based intelligence right there. It's not quite real-time, but with the advent of $100 a kilogram to low Earth orbit, a company like Black Sky could become truly real-time. They could put enough satellites up there where they can be truly real-time. As in, oh, this just happened, a few seconds ago and we captured it real-time. Kind of dystopian to think about, right? That you could be walking outside and somebody could be watching from overhead. But it's the future that we are heading towards, and on a non-dystopian front, this type of technology could help out in real ways for like forest fires, right? If you can detect forest fires almost instantaneously because you've got a constellation up there, you can combat that forest fire a lot easier. Likewise, stuff like hurricanes, we just spoke about Helene, but if you can get better quality imaging of these hurricanes and monitor them around the clock, it provides better data, probably a better chance of being able to mitigate the downstream effects of that. So space-based imaging is over the next decade going to change in a big way. Different sensors, faster response times, probably even the ability to watch certain areas live or near live, with maybe a few seconds delay. So it's going to be a real game changer for space-based imaging. And the next one is space-based manufacturing. So this one, it sounds far-fetched, right? And I pulled up Varda here because they're actually doing it today. So Varda is a microgravity-enabled life sciences company that processes materials in orbit and returns them to Earth. It sounds ridiculous, but they are actually doing it today. They've launched and completed a mission in space. Rocket Lab actually helped them build the capsule, get the capsule returned to Earth and stuff like that. But what Varda is doing is they're building, and you can see right here, crystal structures in microgravity. And I've got a few other articles up here that sort of talk about it. I'll be putting all these links in the video, by the way. So if you want to check out any of this stuff, it should be linked below. But basically, in space, you can manufacture stuff like semiconductors, optical fibers, and nanomaterials. And coming down here, different sorts of drugs, you can manufacture these in space a lot easier because of the microgravity. So these things are able to grow sort of faster, bigger, unencumbered by gravity, right? If you're on Earth, you have the forces of gravity pushing down. If you're in space, that's a lot less. So these structures can grow better in space. Not only that, but because of satellites and how you position them, you could shift. Let's say you need a really, really consistently hot environment in order to manufacture. You can shift your satellite to give it and point it at the sun and say, here's a consistently hot environment to grow whatever needs to grow. If you need consistently cold, obviously you get it away from the sun. Here's a consistently cold, in the vacuum of space, container to manufacture whatever it is that you need to manufacture. And stuff like semiconductors are going to be grown up there in space. To say grow, it sounds crazy, right? But stuff like semiconductors will be able to develop new semiconductors. We'll be able to develop new drugs. We'll be able to expand upon the drugs that we already have today. Factories in space are not science fiction. Varda is already doing it, but we will have companies that are able to do it differently, different products. I won't say better because, maybe Varda ends up being the best there is, but different companies will end up doing different things in space, and we will have factories in space building all kinds of products and all kinds of fun things that are going to be sent back to Earth, or maybe they'll be sent to the moon, right? Maybe we'll have moon bases. The next thing that's going to change in a big way is tourism. So, did the math real quick on tourism because while it sounds crazy, it becomes in the reach of I'm going to say normal in air quotes. I'm going to say normal people, right? Tourism to space today is possible for a private citizen. You don't need to be an astronaut, but it's very, very expensive. You can definitely hop on one of Jeff Bezos's rockets, or maybe if you were really rich, you could figure out a ride to the International Space Station. But you're looking at millions and millions of dollars. With launch at $100 a kilogram, not so large human could, for $10,000, be took into low Earth orbit. You've got to pay for the cost back, you got to pay for some luggage, and you got to pay for your stay on something like the Axiom station or this Haven 1 from Vast. So there are companies making space hotels. So you'll have to pay for your stay on the space hotel, you'll have to pay for your luggage, you'll have to pay for your return trip and stuff. But with low cost, you can easily see a ticket to something like Axiom's space station being $50,000 to $100,000 for a trip. Which, yeah, sounds very expensive, right? But in terms of like the I guess the grand scheme of the cost, it is massively reduced to where it is within reach of those normal people. $50,000 to go up into space and stand on, this is like a glass module that Axiom's planning on putting on their space station. And for those that don't know, Axiom is building a space station on the side of the ISS. So the ISS will be decommissioned, but Axiom are currently building on the side of the ISS, and certain parts of the ISS will be kept and stuff like that. So yeah, Axiom is a very cool company. Definitely check it out. But they are building a space station that you'll be able to visit at some point in the future for probably $50,000 to $100,000, which start saving now. You're going to have yourself a good trip. So that's tourism. So we've covered internet imaging, manufacturing, tourism. We've also got to touch on the wild stuff, which is space-based asteroid mining. I guess, let's say space-based. You're unlikely to want to mine an asteroid on Earth because you've got probably bigger problems on your hand. But asteroid mining is the sci-fi variant of this this little talk that I've put together, because it is it's pretty much still sci-fi, right? But there are asteroids out there that have gold on them. There are asteroids that have platinum, palladium, and water, and iron ore and stuff like that. A lot of that stuff would be useful on Earth, and if we could get cheap mining equipment out there that can also deliver it back to Earth, maybe that's beneficial. But where this might be more beneficial is in getting stuff to the moon, right? If we're able to go out to an asteroid and get stuff in space and then deliver it to the moon, it's a lot easier than, I say a lot easier. It's not a lot easier. It's still very difficult, but it's a lot cheaper, especially if the cost of launch from Earth is cheap to send that equipment up there. It's a lot cheaper to find that stuff already in space and get it to the moon than it is to try and lift off all this gold or whatever. We probably won't need gold on the moon, but all this iron ore to build some steel structures on the moon. It's probably cheaper if we could find it somewhere already in space and get it to the moon. So that's, kind of a look at a handful of different things that you could do with a very cheap launch. And I'm going to be looking at this a lot more in the future, obviously, because it's an area that interests me, and we've still got a number of years until this becomes a reality, right? But I've, like a lot of people, very excited by what we got to see SpaceX do, and just knowing how that's going to change the future of the space economy in such massive ways is really cool to see. So I wanted to put this video together just sort of showing ways that it can change the space economy, and those are just the ways that we know about, right? I tweeted about this earlier, and somebody said it's very much like the internet. So when the internet came to be, we didn't know that I'd be sat here recording a video sort of talking on the internet, right? That wasn't conceived when people sort of brought the internet out. People didn't know that you'd be sat there ordering Uber Eats from your phone. That is, satellites help Uber Eats, right? But people didn't know that you'd be sat there ordering Uber Eats and getting food delivered from a cell phone device. So there are a tremendous amount of ways that this technology or the technology that we saw SpaceX demonstrate yesterday, catching a 270,000 kilogram object that was, up on the outer edges of the atmosphere just a few minutes earlier. That technology that they demonstrated yesterday will change humanity in big ways going forward over the next couple of decades. You don't want to accelerate it, right? You want to keep seeing it happening slowly, but it's going to be very cool to see it play out over the next couple of years, couple of decades, and yeah, I am very excited. Drop comments below if you have any other ideas of how this could change just technology in general. I'd love to hear them. Like I said, I'm very interested in researching this kind of stuff and learning more. So if you do have ways that I haven't covered in this video, drop a comment below. All the links we saw in the video will be below as well if you wanted to check out any of these resources. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Have a good one.